the summer of 1916, William Horace Coltharp had a problem. He was a director for the Bank of Vernal. So when the small town bank was ready to expand and put up sturdy, safe brick walls, it fell on William's shoulders to secure materials for the new bank building. Material that was heavy to move and prohibitively expensive to ship. You see, Vernal was a small town about 125 miles from Utah as the crow flies. But the road to Utah, to Vernal, was rocky, crooked, and dangerous, especially for heavy pressed bricks William needed for the two-story bank they were planning. In fact, shipping costs had become bottleneck for most Vernal businesses by 1916. Growth had become limited to what could be carted in, and who could afford the shipping cost. What puts William Horace Coltharp apart from the other businesses in town was his eye for detail and his willingness to hustle. While some of the businesses might be willing to pay parcel post for a few bags of concrete to be trucked into town, or nails or a bit of lumber for a beehive, William decided to pay for the bank to be shipped in. By poring over the new U.S. Post Office shipping costs and regulations, William saw an opportunity to get a jump start on his new bank. A way to get the pressed bricks he needed for the bank facade shipping into the town for half the cost of private shipping. Pressed bricks, which he could mix with cheaper, locally fired bricks. And William had to act fast before they could close the window on William's bank scheme, which would ultimately get a truck flipped and set ablaze, and convince the U.S. Postal Service to change their rules on parcel packages forever. You're listening to The Re-Engineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no-duh on the internet and get to the facts.
When I say the word hustle, you're probably imagining one of two things. A busy day full of stacks of paperwork and bills, missing breakfast, rushing around in a minivan, and arriving to work with coffee stains on your shirt. Or you're imagining a lucrative side gig that earns you huge stacks of cash, one that will eventually let you quit your day job to pursue your real passion full time. Whichever hustle you're imagining, we want to help you with it. We want you to be rested, centered, better you, capable of tackling the day-to-day hustle. And we want to help you jump into the hustle of life, to get to work and start slaying those goals before they get stale on your vision board. So that's our topic today, the hustle with a capital H. And here are a few myths we want to bust about hustle. Myths like, myth 1, goals, right? All we need to get into hustle is to have a goal in mind and go for it. It's as simple as that. Myth 2, the key to success is stability. That's why we need perfect harmony and timing if we're building good habits, or starting a new workout regimen, or trying to surpass our boss at work. Myth 3, we'll explore the so-called immigrant work ethic. Why are 25% of new companies started by immigrant entrepreneurs? And what makes these businesses more likely to survive long term? Those are the myths we're going to explore. But first, I want to tell Joe about the logistical limitations of mailing yourself a bank. Spoiler, this isn't something you should try through Amazon Prime. All right, Joe, this crazy story. Mailing yourself a bank.
Okay, so this isn't like getting a what do you call it, like a child's playhouse, and they just sort of construct it in the backyard?
No. Yeah, I was thinking about the local banks now that you see in the shopping center, the Chase banks.
Right.
Yeah, these are the good old banks.
So this
They're
is
more
like
monuments.
Right, like a full on brick and mortar.
like a city block.
Okay.
So prior to 2013, the post office, U.S. Post Office, didn't deliver any packages over 4 pounds, period. Then they had a couple of jumps. In 2013, they went to 11 pounds, and then shortly right after, they went to 20 pounds. And in 2014, they had a big jump, 50 pounds to 70 pounds.
Okay, so that's when you could actually send yourself, or send other people. Well, let's see, what's 50 pounds? That's
I think with 2 dumbbells that are 25 piece.
Right.
That's all. I mean, that's an easy one. What else?
Everybody was mailing themselves dumbbells. It must have been Teddy Roosevelt. Like as soon as they saw him slinging dumbbells to get over his asthma, they're like, "Yeah, everybody needs this."
Yeah, what does weigh 50 pounds? A package of meat, like a box of meat or something.
Right.
Yeah. Now, when they went to that 50 to 70 pounds thing, business just blew up. This is in good old days now.
Right.
The teens, the 19 teens, they mailed in 6 months, the first 6 months of changing the weight, 300 million packages.
Wow. Okay.
Now, one of the biggest retailers at the time, and they're kind of pathetic now, but back in the day, Sears Roebuck was the biggest company around. Their business increased 5 times.
Oh, I totally believe that. They were Sears and Roebuck was the original Amazon, really.
That's a good point. They didn't really adjust with the times. Them and JCPenney's have become pretty pathetic, considering the world power they used to be.
Right.
Now, Vernal, if that's how you pronounce it. I was looking it up different ways. It's just Vernal.
Okay.
It was very, very small. How small? 1,000 people small. Now, nowadays, that is a small high school?
I was about to say my school was larger than that.
Now, because it was such a small place, it was close to some major cities, but there was no highways, no freeways back then. There was no railroad that came through. And the only way to get in was really treacherous terrain, rough roads, not like roads we have now.
So we're talking like curvy roads in Utah up a hill kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And this William, he wanted pressed bricks. He could use the local bricks. They didn't look that good because they were just fire bricks. He wanted it to be beautiful. This is his bank. He's on the board of directors. He wants it to be perfect. So he had to get in the veneers of them, which was the pressed bricks.
Okay. So he's one of those bosses.
Save money, right? Good banker. Now, this is where his hustle kicked in. To ship things in from a private company would have been outrageously expensive and possibly just not even doable. So he found this loophole with the U.S. Post Office, and he took full advantage.
Okay. Quick question. If you had to make a bank or an igloo, would you be willing to mail yourself the bricks for it?
No, I'm not patient enough to do that when I got time. Okay, I got to ask you this, Joe. A lot of times when things are down, tough times, we usually change when things get uncomfortable, pain, right?
Right.
Nobody changes when things are going good. We just keep going.
Right. Something has to hit you in the face to make you want to change, I think.
Do you have any stories about someone you know who has had to get real creative to become their better self?
Yes. I had a neighbor who... for years and years, he sort of looked like sort of the stereotypical bachelor. Like he just sort of like rolled around in a old crappy car, and he came home every day to sort of like an empty apartment, and he fed his dog, which is like this sort of like sad, pathetic,
like this loneliness.
Yeah,
I've been there.
I don't know how he did it, but everything about his life, including the dog, was sad. Like his front door, when he would open it, it didn't squeak like on the hinge. It just said sad.
It's like this dark cloud over him.
Right.
We're in Portland, Oregon. It's over all of us, but especially dark over him.
Yeah. But yeah, his cloud just followed him and his dog. But at some point he got like a weight rack in his backyard, and he like set up a garden. Like he started gardening. And it was wild. Like a garden and a weight set. is what set him apart. And like after that, he transformed everything.
So he flourished.
Yeah, he flourished. Like those were the two starting points, and then everything else just sort of followed.
That's great, right? Physical and a creative thing.
Yeah. So how about you? Did you have you seen anything like that?
You know, I talk about my mom a lot. She's been a big influence on me. She's an angel, and she was a school teacher for 30 years, and she got out of it to have me, my brother, and my two sisters. And she was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And she went to get back into teaching, which is something she had a degree in, something she had done for years. She was overqualified. They need teachers. She's phenomenal with kids. She had problems with her assessment tests. She couldn't get her teaching degree back, or her teaching license, I guess it is.
Really?
And you've met my mom. There's nothing she can't do. I mean, she's about as smooth cat as they are.
I remember her going around and talking to everybody in the room and finding out everything about them in like 10 seconds a piece. Like, it was amazing. That's
Mom. So she was very depressed, and she was at a low. And she'd gotten divorced, and she was in a weird place. She was staying with friends. She's just in a bad place. And so what she did, she still loves kids. She loves teaching. She started a tutoring business, and her business has just flourished. And she has a successful practice now. She has 5 tutors that work for her. She bought a house. She bought a business. And so, but if she wouldn't have got turned down for that teaching job, she wouldn't be where she's at now. She had to get creative, and she had to get hustling.
That's incredible.
She also created, she specialized in dyslexic kids and kids with ADHD. And that's something that she went out and hustled and found that there was a need for that.
Right. She targeted a group, basically.
But she didn't know that going in. She had no history in it. She just had to go find her niche.
Okay. We had an episode some time ago about Lee Iacocca and how he's sort of, he got fired from Ford, and then he completely slaughtered in other, he went to work for like Detroit, and he went on to lead a very successful career. Your mom kind of sounds like that to me. Like she got pushed out of teaching and then started tutoring and is just dominating.
That's exactly right. For me, there's 2 quotes that I really like. One's from the Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack Canfield. Do you know if you've heard of him?
Oh, absolutely.
He's a great speaker, and he talks about if getting hustling and getting going, if you're waiting for 7 doves to fly over your head and tell you it's time, just get going. And then Zig Ziglar, the sales trainer, says, we can always find reasons not to get hustling, get going. Like, well, the kids are in school, or the kids are in sports, or, well, it's Christmas time. He goes, if you keep doing that, you're going to do that the rest of your life. So get started now. And for me, how I get going, how I get hustling, is I have to really feel that pain. I really have to feel that sting. And kind of like your neighbor there, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I get going. I set deadlines for myself. I start working on perfect practice we talked about before, right. Getting reps, getting training, just get going. Now, what a problem you can fall into, and I've had this happen to myself, is if you start talking to people about your goals, you get that attention like you've already achieved it.
Right.
And that can be very addictive.
We covered that in our we had a episode about Dan Fogelberg and measuring our success, and we talked about a study how discussing our goals and how imagining them can trick your brain into thinking you've already done it.
Just thinking it, you get yourself in that dopamine and that.
Right. That your brain interprets it as, especially if you get feedback, like especially if like you're on Facebook and all of your family members and friends are like, yes, you can do this goal, like you can lose that 10 pounds or whatever.
Quit the smoking, lose the weight, write the book.
Right. That positive feedback can actually make your brain think that you've already accomplished something. So we're going to reference a Harvard study that talks about how 83% of the U.S. population does not have goals, and less than 3% of people will write down their goals. So first off, we don't want to poo-poo on goals. We want to say that goals are very important. If you have them, you are more likely to succeed by far, like more than 10 times if you don't have goals.
And we have them, and we talk about them.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're not even talking about like specific methodology. We're not talking like vision boards or fridge magnets or anything. Just anything at all. Literally write it down on anything, like a slip of paper you keep in your wallet, whatever.
What percentage of our country doesn't have them at all?
It's 83% of the U.S. population does not have goals.
Does that seem
It
very
seems
sad?
Crazy, right? People and less than 3% of people write them down. So like people that do have goals are less than 20%. People that write them down are less than 3%.
We are a hopeless nation.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, please write down your goals. But the bigger part of it too is don't just fantasize to achieve your goals, because fantasizing about it can trick your brain into thinking that you've already done it. We're also going to link to a UCL London article. They had this is from Jeremy Dean, a psychology researcher at UCL, who talks about how the problem with positive fantasies, and this is a direct quote, so please look this up. The problem with positive fantasies is that they allow us to anticipate success in the here and now, but they don't alert us to problems that we're facing along the way. So in a nutshell, imagining yourself having lost 10 pounds doesn't actually give you the skills to do it. So, that really sounds like a no-duh, but it really holds true for pretty much everybody. Like any goal setting you will do.
What does it with your writing? You need to do the structure and how you did it.
Yeah, totally.
It isn't this one and done. I think that's kind of destination thinking. Once I lose 10 pounds, then I'm good. You'll gain it right back. Or you write one story, but that story's not going to win her. You need to write 1,000 of them.
Yeah, you literally have to go through the pain of whatever you're trying to accomplish to know the process. The process is actually more important to the goal than the goal itself, most often.
And the journey is usually better than the goal, the dream at the end anyways.
Right, exactly. So we're going to talk about, if you're willing, Keystone Habits. So if you are looking to set goals, or if you're looking to accomplish something in your life, this is something that pretty much statistically holds true across the board. Things that will... a keystone habit to sort of like break it down. This was a term coined by Charles Duhigg.
I've never heard that. I've read a shitload of goal books too.
Okay.
Keystone.
This is from The Power of Habit, which is where he first coined the term. But these are chain reaction habits. These are habits that once you start adopting them in life will help you sort of like they rearrange your brain and they rearrange your habit making so that it affects you positively throughout your life.
So reprogramming, we could all use this, right?
Oh, totally, yeah. And again, each one of these is sort of like held up by statistics. Like it's not just a self-helpy nonsense thing. These have been sort of like researched to death.
Which Joe and I hate those posts on Facebook.
Right. As we go through these, you're going to roll your eyes because a lot of them are super simple and super no duh. But they are things that like, again, a keystone habit is something that triggers people to start adopting better habits around it. So like you change it sort of changes parts of your life. The first thing, and I don't want to look over at Todd too much because he looks like he could crush me, exercise.
Gym rats.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't do good if you don't feel good. Another Zig Ziglar quote.
Totally. Physical exercise, whether that's walking 30 minutes a day or I think Todd picks up a bus every day. I assume that's how he gets so in shape. But
Joe is freakishly strong, naturally strong, and he goes jogging and gets lost. I want everyone to know that.
Right.
Terrible sense of direction, even in his own neighborhood.
That is actually how I exercise, is I start by getting lost. But according to research, exercising at least 3 times a week it doesn't just make you healthier. I really want to stress that Keystone Habit does not mean that like that one thing changes. It's not like exercising helps you stay fit. Like you literally start eating better, you have more patience, you become less stressed, you consume less alcohol, you smoke less. Like it is a keystone. Like it starts cascading other things you do. So
makes you a different person all the way around, a better person.
Right. So like writing a goal on a slip of paper and putting it on your fridge may mean you will achieve that goal, according to statistics, 83% higher than normal. Like you will more likely achieve it. But Keystone Habits actually, like they measurably affect change almost immediately. So exercise is a good one. Another one is meditation. Do you meditate?
I have. I did yoga for about 3 years. And then with COVID going on, one of the yoga teachers gives a free meditation class to us, to my wife and I.
Okay.
So I want to shout out to Jamie. So yes, we do. And she's phenomenal. She used to be a professional meditation coach. That's what she did for a job. So
oh, wow.
So talk about adding to your entourage.
That's a good one to have.
Yeah, we have a professional free meditation coach.
So what do you notice about your life when you meditate? Like what changes?
For me, it's like turning off the computer, just finally getting some silence of the brain. It takes your stress level, your cortisol level way down. Everybody I know who's gone through any major trauma or addiction or anything, they all credit meditation as being a high on something that they had to do to get better.
Okay. I think that's a very fair way to put it.
Have you done any meditation stuff?
Yes. I misunderstood meditation for a very long time. I thought that it was sort of a new agey way to declutter your mind, that it was just going to be trying to get into a nirvana space.
I thought it was some weird religion that I want to be part of too.
Yeah, ditto.
Some kind of hippie thing.
And then I had somebody explain it to me. They're like, no, you can think while you're meditating. You can use that time to concentrate on something or to express yourself or go through steps. Basically, they said like, well, we're just going to reiterate what the study says too. Meditation is a way to sort of it increases gray matter. It helps your neurons fire better. It makes you restructure what you're thinking and to reframe and contextualize what you are doing, which is effectively what meditation is basically for. I mean, like, unless you are actually trying to contact Buddha or reach nirvana, then
it helps me with all my relationships. It helps me be more patient with people. It really just takes that, when you're grinding your teeth and you're just trying to get through the day, it lets you take back and kind of prioritize everything.
That is a really good way of putting it. And that actually nicely segues us to one of the Keystone Habits we were going to talk about, which is planning your day. So do that while you're doing meditation. Planning at your day, whether it's working out, reading, meditation, you're much more likely to actually accomplish the things you want to do, including meditation, if you plan out your day first.
That sounds like a no duh, but it's something we skip over, right?
Yeah, totally. I don't plan out any of my days. Of the Keystone Habits that we're going to cover, that's the one I actually don't do enough. And that's the one that really seems to sort of like, if I miss meditation, it's because I didn't plan. Okay, so here's one that I'm very guilty of: sleep.
Joe hasn't slept in like 15 years. I swear.
I have, my bags have bags under my eyes, but unfortunately,
that's
sleep
the one that's
is a Keystone Habit.
Underrated for people's health.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone says if I could just get some sleep. Is there anything better than a good nap? I mean, that's the freaking best feeling in the world.
Yeah. A unplanned nap is the best feeling in the world. Like falling asleep on the couch and not having anyone wake you up for like 3 hours. Following a morning routine. Now that one to me sounds like a no-duh and completely underrated, and that kind of goes also into planning out your day. But again, by carving out goals and sort of planning out productivity for the day, it sets you up to sort of, like this whole episode is about hustle. It really does set you up to get that peak performance. I actually don't want to use that phrase peak performance because it sounds like we're in a Mountain Dew commercial, but it completely works. Like Keystone Habits and setting those up, setting up a routine is really helpful.
This sounds like real good preparation, like doing less, exercise, meditation, sleep, get a routine. It sounds like basic steps, like good fundamentals for a quality life.
Each one of those is something that like a noisy girlfriend would plan for her New Year's resolution. Like each one of these is like somebody's joke resolution, but they're totally true. Each one of them contributes to just overall better health.
What I like about it, Joe, is this stuff we can all do.
Yeah.
We're already doing them. We just got to do a little bit more.
Right, exactly. So I don't know what William's refrigerator looked like, or if he had his goals posted on the fridge back in the early 19-teens. But how was William going about these Keystone Habits? Like, he was clearly invested in getting his bank, right?
Yeah, he's interested in the bank. He's also interested in taking the post office to the cleaners. Talk about an opportunist.
Cheating the system.
Well, with this new rule they put in, so they were making money on Sears Roebuck and all these other companies. With his loophole, it turned out that they were losing 21 cents on every single package they sent to Vernal. And so that came out. The government, on a low estimate, said they were losing about $25,000 to $30,000 on this bank. Which, in today's money, Joe, doesn't sound like that much, right? Mm-hmm. In today's money, is $600K to $700K. Conservatively.
So him mailing himself a bank, the post office lost a couple houses.
Yeah. Now keep in mind the U.S. Post Office has been losing money since then.
Right.
Even when these businesses like UPS, FedEx have all made billions in the shipping business, somehow our good old state-run post office is still losing its ass.
Right.
Now, other people caught on to this in the town. It's a town of 1,000, right? So they started getting everything mailed in because, let's face it, they weren't, there wasn't Whole Foods and Kruger that back then. They didn't have much.
Okay.
So they started getting cement, plaster, flour, sugar, lots of soup. That was a big thing. Soup's very heavy too. Now there's a postmaster. His name was, I'm going to butcher his name, but it's David Benion. And he had an assistant, right? But they couldn't keep up with the work. This is a small town, 1,000 people. You only need one person at the post office, right?
Okay.
So they were working 15-hour days. And they finally got sick. They weren't delivering the stuff to the people anymore. These bricks and all this stuff. They said, you got to come pick this shit up. We're not doing it. We're friggin' busy. You're not paying us for this.
Okay. So two poor bastards, sick of basically being a two-man army of Amazon Prime.
Now, not only was it a lot of work for the people that were in the town, but think of the people that actually had to get these huge, heavy shipments into town. So they're on these bumpy, not even developed roads that we couldn't even imagine. We wouldn't even walk on nowadays.
Oh, God. Like the cars back then, like we're talking like model, like Ford Model Ts on, carrying bricks.
So one of the company trucks, because of it was so heavy, was so loaded up with bricks and stuff, it started coasting backwards. And then it was loaded with several thousand bricks. The truck rolled back, flipped over, and caught on fire. The driver was not injured, but they lost most of the bricks.
Okay.
It probably slowed down production of it.
Right. And then William's like, where's my bricks? Like,
yeah, we're a day behind now.
Yeah, well, I expected that shipment. At the start of our episode, we talked about not just hustle, but like being in an ideal situation to start hustle. Like I don't know about you, but I don't want to start new goals unless I am well rested, in my prime, pampered. I have to have somebody fanning me. So we want to get into
to get started.
Yeah,
it isn't easy. It's uncomfortable.
No, it is kind of like I joked a little bit about the New Year's resolution, but like I think the reason why people do that so much, the New Year's resolution, is because it gives you an opportunity to set goals and to do it in an ideal situation because you're surrounded by friends, you're drinking, and it sounds good at the time. But we want to talk a little bit about how to start thriving in chaos. Like we want to be able to hustle when other things are happening in life, when the kids have to get to soccer practice and when we have to cook a meal on the go. So I can't go a single episode without referencing Game of Thrones. So there's a character in there, Littlefinger. He says chaos is a ladder. We want to explore that. We want to talk about how to thrive in chaos. So this comes from a Forbes article, which is 6 Ways to Thrive in Chaos. And it's written by Jeff Boss, who was in the Navy SEAL training. They call it the BDUS. And he has 6 things that will sort of like help you thrive in chaos and also make you feel good about it. And he has fantastic examples. One of the ones he talks about is reframing your thoughts. So, Todd, have you ever been in a situation where you're at work and you have to recontextualize things for yourself?
Yeah. When the stress gets a little, like when I do estimates and I do project management stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I'm too overwhelmed, I have to just take a step back and say, okay, what does this mean? Like the stress can kind of get to me and I can kind of get a little bit over emotional.
Okay.
What about you?
Very much. I have to, my boss, the way they work things at my work is they try to pressure people below them and that makes them work harder, quote unquote. So a lot of what we have to do is recontextualize. We have to reframe the way we think of what we're doing because we have to recognize when it's external versus internal pressure.
Because they say, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right, exactly. What is actually a demand on us versus what is a demand from our bosses and what they're looking for, what they want as a result versus what they actually need.
So you have to prioritize what you're going to actually do.
Right,
you can't do all of it.
Right, and by reframing things. This also, if you've ever heard of Chris Voss, he's a negotiator from the FBI, and he has a master class. He talks about the same thing, labeling, which is being able to sort of like take something out of a box or an emotion, label it, and then identify it.
You're the third person this week I've heard talk about that guy.
Really?
So his books must be good.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, he's got an amazing. His book is great. His masterclass is phenomenal. But he mentions labeling a lot. Another one is speaking to the positive. So eliminating contractions from your vocabulary, like. And this is something else that I've heard about the Chinese language, which is very odd, but not having a future tense apparently helps. So like instead of saying, I'm planning to lose weight or I'm going to lose 5 pounds, just say I'm losing 5 pounds.
Well, it's already happening. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it's an interesting sort of trick, but apparently that works. I have not had enough experience with that to try it myself, but it seems to be effective across the board.
Everything doing tomorrow is like a stall tactic anyways.
Right, yeah. Future tensing yourself is kind of like putting it off for like future Joe. Like me, present Joe, will be on a podcast sleep deprived, but future Joe will take care of things for me. He'll sleep and do all these goals and all these neat things, right?
Be all bright and bushy-tailed, positive. That'd be nice.
Right.
That'd be nice. We would never start this show if we're waiting for that.
Right. I remember somebody, when I was in the Correct Writers room, somebody talked about that in an article. They were like, yeah, you put all this stuff on your future self as if you're going to be emotionally ready for things in the future, but You're not. You're the present you. Like you're not going to be ready for that. So yeah, don't push it off onto future you. Future you will not be able to handle these things any better than you are right now. A couple of kind of no-duh ones from this article, but I still appreciate them. Exercising. It releases serotonin and norepinephrine and things like that. So giving yourself a mental boost and socializing. I know we're breezing through those ones, but they're still really, really important for thriving in chaos. Like I swear to God, if you exercise and socialize during chaotic times, those things will ground you.
See, it's so funny because everything I've ever read about hustle and getting more done and doing all this stuff is always just to overwhelm your stuff and outwork everybody. This is almost saying just take care of yourself, like self-love.
Yeah. Taking those moments and grounding yourself. Basically, if you become the control in a chaotic environment, that's actually effectively how you get ahead. Like if the environment is chaotic, but you are the rock in the stream, it means that you are able to control yourself, and thus you're able to affect change yourself, which is
powerful.
Right, exactly. It's very powerful.
What percentage of people do you think can do this? If you practice it, right, you're going to handle every situation better.
Totally, yeah. Ask me next week if I've practiced these things, by the way. I will disappoint you.
We take away from the show, though. We do.
Yeah, that is true.
We never know what's going to stick. This one I think we could do.
I think so, yeah. I think you've got about half of these already, at least. Or if you just want to become a master of taking chaos and turning it to your own power, just read 48 Laws of Power. Like that's if you want to become Machiavelli, then that works too. But I like this Navy SEAL approach a little bit better than that. So a long time ago, I mean, like almost the very start of this show, we had a doc we opened up in Google, and we started adding sort of ideas for shows. And one of the very early ones, Todd added immigrant work ethic, and hustle was the absolute best episode that I could think of to add this in. So, do you want to talk about why, as we teased at the start, why immigrants open businesses at a higher success rate, and also how William was not an immigrant to Utah, although technically everybody in Utah at that time was. So do you want to talk about that?
He was non-Mormon, what he was.
Yeah.
Which is rare, right? Especially for back then.
Right.
First of all, for immigrant, I married an immigrant, so I know their work ethic. And I had a business that was all immigrants, and I was the only American-born person there. So I've got nothing but love for how hard they work. When I was in the construction business and in the sales business, I saw them over and over working long days with the best attitudes I've ever seen.
Okay.
And the latter one being the tough one. You know, when you can work all day and be into those stressful situations and still come through. This is how much of our industries is from immigrants. The textile industry is about 36% is immigrant. Agriculture is 33%. Food manufacturing is 30%. Electronic products, 27%. To mention, and of course, construction's another 25%. So a lot of administrative support jobs, a lot of those too. This country was founded and developed by immigrants, right? We all came from somewhere.
Right.
The Germans really developed the Midwest. That's all Germans. East Coast, New York, we think about a lot of Italians, a lot of Irish.
Have you ever heard of the, I think it's 11 Nations of America?
No.
It's exactly what you're saying. It's the idea that we didn't arrive in America as immigrants and form a melting pot. We actually separated into basically a tossed salad.
Oh, like a segregation of they all followed each other. Yeah, I can totally see that.
During our episode about Max Gendelman and making friends, he mentioned that like Milwaukee, where he was from, was completely German. Or no, sorry, they were Jewish. But that's exactly what we're talking about. Is that like immigrants arrived in America and then split off into their own sort of like separate cities.
Yeah, my uncle says that joke about Boston. He says, on the West Coast, everyone's just white people. But on the East Coast, he says in Boston, you're Irish, you're Italian, you're French. You live in that same neighborhood and you act accordingly.
Right. Teddy Roosevelt famously had a speech that he gave to unions, and he called them hyphenated Americans. He said that Americans are Irish American or German American or something. He's like, we need to stop hyphenating every American. but it's completely true. Like even if you're not a first generation immigrant, you came from that at least. You work with Mongolians, right?
I did. On the painting company, they were probably my favorite, hardest workers and best attitude people.
Okay. Is it safe to say from this study that did you look into the cartel, the what do you call it, the Patel Motel cartel?
Well, this is an interesting one. I read a couple articles about this, and what it is you hear the joke about you go to a hotel and it's always an Indian person that's there,
right?
Well, there's a reason. 50 or 60% of the hotels owned in this country are Indian, and they're all loosely associated or related to that same Patel family.
Okay.
And what I really loved about, different groups different immigrant groups you associate with different businesses. Like with the Koreans, there's a lot of restaurants, and the two that they're very heavy in are dry cleaners and convenience stores.
Right.
And Hispanic, there's a lot of roofing, farming, like agriculture, and then landscaping are kind of dominated that business. The Russian Ukrainians, a lot of them get reselling cars, used car dealerships, and rebuilding cars. And then there's a lot of finished carpentry work. They do flooring, they do skilled construction work. And I love this. So 50% of the hotels in the United States are owned by people of Indian origin, right?
Okay.
And they asked them, they're doing research and say, why are they so attracted to this? Because a lot of them could do all different kinds of business. They're very educated, they're very smart, they're very hardworking. And this is what they said. They said, it's easy to run. You don't have to speak perfect English. If you're willing to work the long hours, and it's a business that comes with a place to live. So you don't have to have a separate residence. Isn't that clever?
That is, yeah. It's you just have to have a room that didn't get rented that night.
Yeah, and when you're getting started until you get established. But what a great business plan. So they see all their family members doing this, and then they just duplicate it. They don't have to go outside and invent their own social media platform or do some other kind of business. They do what they know. So they've already got the framework for success.
Right. It's a hustle that they know the road for, and that
and the pitfalls.
Yeah. I feel like not to spoil too much about our episode, but I feel like that's a lot of hustle is once you see the road, once you see the path or the steps to make a hustle work, you can actually get started. And
it's not a shortcut. You still have to be willing to do the long hours. That's the first thing they said.
Right, exactly. They put in the work, but yeah, knowing how to get there. I would actually, just in case folks listening may not be aware of like the science behind or the stats behind immigrant work ethic and their success rates. I kind of want to go through a little bit of this. Like I want to cover the stats so that I don't know. I don't want to have us make assumptions about success rates. So this comes from a Harvard Business School paper, and they talk about how foreign-born people make up 13% of the U.S. population, which isn't the bulk. However, they make 25% of new companies.
Oh, wow.
So like a quarter of all new businesses are immigrant businesses. And there are certain states that are called gateway states for new businesses. So like that's not across the board. Like Wyoming is not going to be booming with immigrant businesses. It's actually New York and California that make up 40% of new businesses led by immigrants. So there's a couple of states that are just basically hot spawning beds for immigrant business.
It makes sense. There's more immigrants that live in the big cities like that.
Right, exactly.
People immigrate towards the people that they know and family members that they have there. They get sponsored or just, get employed.
Right, or they've seen their families set up businesses, so they know the road. Like we've talked about with Hustle, it's they actually have a blueprint or a business model that they can follow. Part of this too is because immigrant groups that come from overseas, they have a dynamic effect on the economy, but they also are doing it because their skills or their education backgrounds may not be covered by or interpretable by American standards. So, for instance, this is just completely anecdotal, but I knew a friend whose father was a brain surgeon in Vietnam, and when he came over here, the college he went to learn literal brain surgery did not translate well to him.
Wasn't credited here. They wouldn't.
Right, it wasn't credited here, yeah. and his skills weren't credited here, and so he ended up working at a nursery, he sold trees basically.
A brain surgeon.
A brain surgeon who was watering plants for a living.
so his English isn't quite as good, and he can't transfer his skills.
Right, exactly. So if you're wondering why immigrant entrepreneurs make up 25% of new companies, it's not always that. That was completely anecdotal, but a lot of it is it comes down to skilled people arrive, and then they have to do something that will make them money, and their skills are not, or skills in education, their socioeconomic background does not necessarily translate. So why not start a business?
I want to touch on the accent thing. Joe and I both love accents, right? And in sales training, they teach you that if you have an accent, it's an advantage because people have to listen to you a little bit harder.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But I had this boss, and the company I was working for them as a salesperson, and most of our employees that did the work didn't speak very much English, very little. And this is what he taught us to say to the customers, because the customers can be kind of, in my opinion, a little bit racist sometimes. And they say, well, does any of these guys speak English? In a real, how else can you take that, right?
Right.
And this is what he told me to tell him. I love this. He said, well, there is someone in every crew that speaks English. But your idea of English and my idea of English might be very, very different. And I love that.
It might be a slightly different English than what you're used to. I would love it if whoever got on the phone, like when they would ask, does anyone speak English? Just put somebody on that's like Cockney British. like welcome, not like they're just horrible. Just annoy them. So can we? I mean, like the big spoiler is that if we want to hustle, we need to have a roadmap. We need to set goals. So did William get his bank? I'm dying to know.
William got his bank. Now I want to describe this thing to you. It's called the Bank of Vernal, and it's referred to, nicknamed lovingly, as the Parcel Post Bank. Isn't that kind of throwing a middle finger at the U.S. Post Office?
It's kind of like bragging. Like if you dunk on somebody and then like give them the thumbs up right after, that's kind of what he's doing to the post office.
Now again, this isn't one of those little branches that you see in the grocery store. You know what I mean? Where you go cash your check at. This is a institution. It takes up a whole city block. It could, Joe, it could be a military base.
Oh man! And those old brick banks, they are solid. It's not just all windows.
Yeah, they build this one brick at a time. It was built right.
Right.
So, the U.S. Postal Service, the postmaster, because of this small town, they actually had to change the shipping rules. But nobody abused it or took advantage for as long as Little Vernal did, and William, our hero.
Right. A bag of nails or a bit of concrete can't compare with an entire bank.
The U.S. Post Office is still losing money today, even though FedEx, UPS, I talked about this earlier, and Amazon are all making billions.
Right.
So maybe they could kind of get some of the structure. Do you think they would learn from these other companies, right?
One would think. We covered Amazon's business model on another episode, so we won't get too far into that. But does this kind of make you want to just like send yourself some really heavy stuff?
The bottom line of this story was the U.S. Post Office was not as smart as our hero William was. Goals are an overall positive thing to keep, and you're even more likely to achieve them if you write them down. But there is one surefire way to hit your goals faster and experience a net positive impact on your life. Keystone Habits. Pick up habits that have been proven to affect the rest of your day-to-day behavior in a beneficial way, like exercise, meditation, and sleep. These Keystone Habits may not feel as sexy as visualizing yourself as a billionaire entrepreneur, but they're part of the hustle you can start achieving today, right now. Chaos can be a ladder, but only for the folks ready to climb. Take it from Navy SEALs. Reframe your thoughts, speak to the positive, and give yourself those physical and social boosts you need to stay in the hustle. Staying in the hustle is harder than the initial jump in, so make sure you're prepared mentally for the long haul. Finally, if your new hustle is a small business, an investment, or a self-run operation, remember that thinking outside the box doesn't necessarily mean discovering a new method all on your own. But if you're like William Coltharp, it might mean being more dogged and more audacious in what you're willing to do to get what you need. After all, if God closes a door, do you have the guts to ask him to FedEx you the window? You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
You can connect with us at www.re-engineeredyou.com. That's our way of research links, show notes, and blog articles for every episode. We also appreciate feedback, and we love spirited debates.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.